Boston, spring 2030. My name is Maya Rhodes, and in 1 week I was supposed to graduate with honors, first in my family to ever touch a college diploma. But instead of celebrating, I found myself sitting in a polished mahogany office under fluorescent lights that buzzed like a warning. Across from me sat Claudine Walsh, one of the board members for the scholarship fund. Her jewelry clinked softly as she pushed a manila envelope across the desk toward me. "Miss Rhodes," she said, her smile thin as glass, "we've uncovered irregularities. Your scholarship is being revoked immediately. If you'd like to preserve your dignity, you'll sign this withdrawal letter." Quietly. I froze. My chest tightened, but my face didn't move. 4 years of late-night shifts, 4 years of holding my parents' pride together with duct tape and prayer, and she wanted me to erase it all with a single signature. Behind her, the window overlooked the Charles River, calm and glittering like nothing was wrong. But in that moment, my entire world tilted. I looked at the envelope, then at her. She expected me to beg, to crumble, to vanish. I didn't. Not yet. 4 years earlier, fall 2026, I walked onto campus with a second-hand backpack, shoes that squeaked on marble floors, and a heart beating loud enough to drown out the city traffic. Everyone around me looked like they had stepped out of glossy brochures, designer coats, brand new laptops, confidence polished since prep school. Me. I came from a 2-bedroom apartment above my dad's welding shop in Worcester. Mom worked double shifts at the hospital just so I could afford the bus ticket for move-in day. I'll never forget that first scholarship dinner. Crystal glasses, steak cooked medium rare, conversations about summer homes and internships in D.C. When it was my turn to introduce myself, I said, "Maya Rhodes, biology major." The silence that followed was deafening. Someone smirked. Another student asked if I got special consideration because I was first gen. My face burned, but I didn't answer. That night, I called my dad. I told him maybe I didn't belong here. He said something I carried with me every single day. "Belonging isn't given, Maya. It's proven. And you don't prove it by shouting. You prove it by finishing." So I stayed. I worked nights at a diner scrubbing floors till 2 a.m. I carried textbooks into break rooms, studied between refilling coffee pots, and somehow I stayed at the top of my class. And maybe, just maybe, that's why they started watching me. Not because I didn't belong, but because I refused to disappear. That night, after Claudine shoved the envelope across the desk, I went back to my dorm room and locked the door. I sat there in the dark, staring at the glow of my laptop screen. My hands trembled, but my mind was clear. Because the truth was, I had been preparing for this. For months, little things hadn't added up. Projects I'd been mysteriously excluded from. Recommendation letters lost in transition. Professors suddenly questioning the originality of my work. So I started saving everything. Every email, every memo, every meeting I just happened to record on my phone when conversations got tense. Call it paranoia or survival. I opened a hidden folder on my desktop and clicked a file I hadn't dared play until that moment. It was an audio clip from a committee meeting 3 months ago. The voices were muffled, but then clear enough to slice through the silence. Claudine Walsh. "If Maya keeps ranking first, my son won't be considered for the Rhodes Fellowship. We need grounds to disqualify her. Manufacture them if we must." My stomach twisted, but my jaw set. This wasn't about irregularities. This wasn't about integrity. It was about envy, about power. And they thought I'd fold, sign the paper, and vanish quietly. But I wasn't going to vanish. I leaned back in my chair, pressed save, and whispered to myself. They just handed me the proof. 2 days later, I was summoned to a special review session. The email said it was routine. The tone said otherwise. When I walked into the boardroom, the air was thick, like everyone had rehearsed what was about to happen. At the head of the table sat Claudine, perfectly composed, pearls gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Next to her was the dean, flipping through a folder like my future was just paperwork. And then I saw him, Ethan Cole, my closest classmate, the one I'd pulled all-nighters with, the one I thought understood what it meant to claw your way up. He avoided my eyes, staring at the table. My stomach dropped. The dean cleared his throat. "Miss Rhodes, serious concerns have been raised about your conduct. Academic dishonesty, misuse of grant funds, fabrication of lab results." Each word hit like a hammer, lies, every single one of them. But Ethan didn't speak, didn't defend me. He just sat there, complicit in his silence. Claudine leaned forward, voice smooth as poison. "We can make this easy, Maya. Withdraw quietly, sign the papers, and this doesn't follow you beyond these walls." I looked at Ethan again, searching for some flicker of loyalty, of truth, but all I saw was fear, fear of losing his place, fear of crossing her. That's when it sank in. This wasn't just an attack. It was betrayal by the institution, by the people I thought were allies, by someone I once called a friend. My hands tightened under the table. They thought I was cornered. What they didn't know was that I was recording every second. The dean's voice droned on about violations of academic code, but I barely heard him. My pulse slowed, my focus sharpened. When he finally asked if I had anything to say in my defense, I stood. My chair scraped against the tile, the sound echoing through the sterile boardroom like a warning shot. I reached into my bag and placed a small flash drive on the polished table. "I do," I said. My voice didn't shake. Claudine smirked, as if I'd just handed her more ammunition. "What could you possibly—" I cut her off. "Evidence." The projector hummed to life. The audio clip played, every word crisp, undeniable. Claudine's voice clear as day. "If Maya keeps ranking first, my son won't be considered for the Rhodes Fellowship. We need grounds to disqualify her. Manufacture them if we must." Silence, thick, suffocating silence. The dean froze mid-breath. Eyes flicked from me to Claudine, then back. Ethan's face drained of color. He looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. I let the recording hang in the air, then spoke. "These are not irregularities. These are manufactured attacks. This is collusion." Claudine opened her mouth, but nothing came out. For the first time, her perfect composure cracked. I leaned forward, hands on the table. "You tried to erase me with lies, but you underestimated me. I don't yell. I don't storm out. I keep receipts." The room stayed silent, no one daring to breathe, and in that silence, I knew the tide had turned. By the next morning, the recording had already spread beyond that boardroom. Someone leaked it, maybe a secretary, maybe one of the junior professors tired of being pushed around. It didn't matter. The damage was done. Headlines hit the student paper first. "Scholarship board member caught in scandal. Student targeted. Evidence leaked." By noon, local news anchors were repeating Claudine's voice on air. The pearls around her neck couldn't save her anymore. She resigned that same week under personal reasons. Everyone knew the truth. Ethan, he didn't escape either. His silence in that room became the loudest proof of his betrayal. Professors withdrew their recommendations. His name vanished from the shortlists he bragged about. In one night, the boy who thought he was untouchable became invisible. And the dean, the man who almost signed my future away, called me into his office. This time, no folder on his desk, no accusations, just 2 words he could barely spit out. "I'm sorry." I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because walking across campus for the first time in 4 years, people didn't look through me. They looked at me, not as a charity case, not as someone hanging on by a thread, but as the girl who refused to fold and exposed the game instead. 1 week later, the spring sun lit the quad as thousands gathered for graduation. Caps, gowns, camera flashes, it all felt surreal. When my name was called, I walked across that stage in my navy robe, the scholarship stole draped proudly across my shoulders. The same stole they tried to strip from me. My parents stood in the crowd, faces wet with tears they didn't bother hiding. As I took the diploma, the dean shook my hand. His grip was stiff, his eyes downcast. I held my head higher. And then, at the podium, they gave me the mic. I looked out at the sea of faces. Students who had been told they weren't enough, professors who doubted me, board members who wanted me silent. My voice was steady. 4 years ago, I walked onto this campus with nothing but a backpack and a dream. People told me I didn't belong. They tried to erase me, not with truth, but with lies. But here's what I've learned. Belonging is not given, it's proven. And you don't prove it by staying quiet. You prove it by standing up, even when they expect you to fall. For a moment, the crowd was silent. And then the applause hit, loud, unrestrained, like thunder rolling across the lawn. I smiled not because I needed their validation, but because I finally understood my father's words. I had finished. I had proven it. And this time I didn't just belong. I owned my place.